All righty, guys. Welcome back to the Left of Straight Show Interviews, the premier podcast that shares the stories of our amazing LGBTQ community and, of course, fantastic straight allies, all from entertainment, foodies, books, music, and advocacy. I'm your host, as always, Scott Fullerton, and let's start talking. Welcome back, everyone, to another fun interview from the world of entertainment. Today, I have a special treat for you. Our guest is the incredibly talented comedian, entertainer, and self-avowed prankster. Michael Carbonaro is in studio with me. Michael is best known for his TV show, The Carbonaro Effect, where he performs mind-bending magic tricks and pranks that leave his unexpected participants and audience in awe. With his unique blend of comedy and magic, Michael's carved out a terrific niche for himself, becoming a beloved figure in the world of entertainment. Today we'll delve into his fascinating career, little secrets behind the magic maybe, and much more. But first, take a look.
Do you drink coffee?
I do.
Do you drink it black?
So I drink it in many ways.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Me too.
Depending on what mood I'm in.
I drink
Yeah.
it with reconstituted sugar.
Oh.
What the hell does that mean?
Well, this is just regular sugar, but I
What's reconstituted? What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Oh, you don't know reconstituted sugar? It
Do
takes
you know
out
what that means? I don't know what that means.
It takes out the calories from the sugar.
You know, that's why I don't know what this means.
I'm going to teach you how to reconstitute sugar.
I don't reconstitute
I do
much,
hand,
my friend.
I hand reconstitute the sugar.
Okay, wait,
So
what?
you pour the sugar
Okay.
into your hand.
Yeah.
You could buy it reconstituted already.
Okay.
But having it, if you just do it in your hand like that, and it's a reconstitute, and then you kind of just hold it up in the air like that, so you can see it. Look. There's like little pieces of it right there, floating right there.
No,
Yep,
there's
you
not.
see
It's
it?
gone.
Catch it, and then when it reconstitutes, it comes back and it doesn't have the,
What the hell?
doesn't have the calories anymore. Yeah, so it's much safer.
Did you see it? Did you see it happen?
He had nothing in his hands.
Oh my gosh.
From the Carbonaro Effect, magician Michael Carbonaro is coming to you with Lies on Stage.
Hi, I'm Kim Kardashian.
No, you're Michael Carbonaro.
My new show will feature lots of alligator wrestling.
No, it will feature brand new magic.
Would I lie to you?
Yeah, you just did. America's favorite trickster is back with Carbonaro, Lies on Stage.
It will be good for the entire family.
Oh, yeah, finally something true. Purchase tickets now at michaelcarbonaro.com.
We are back. Well, there he was, Mr. Michael Carbonaro himself, and now live in studio. Michael, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Scott. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you. I've been a fan for a long time. As I told you out there, I got the chance to see you a couple times live. Been watching you since the Jay Leno days, so it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Wow, thanks. That stretches way back. Big fan, huh? That's good.
I'm a man of a certain age, so I've been around the block once or twice, my friend. I always like to ask two questions for first-timers on the show. Let's start by people who have been living under a rock. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and what kind of a kid were you?
Okay. I grew up in Long Island, New York, and I was a weird kid. I loved horror movies, probably more than anything else, and my first passion was special makeup effects. That was kind of the direction right at a young age that I was certain I was going to be in. You know, I loved Nightmare on Elm Street. I just was obsessed with watching those movies, and I literally used to buy makeup supplies from a local magic shop in Long Island, which is kind of what brought me over to magic. I also was liking magic. I was watching magic on TV, Copperfield and all that. And, but I started like buying magic tricks at that shop instead and like performing for my friends and sort of like, oh, I like to maybe be a performer. So that kind of led me on that path.
I love that. Was it an actual magic shop, or like I had a hobby shop in my hometown that had magic in it, and I'm a Southern California boy at heart, so we'd always go to Disneyland, to the magic store in Disneyland.
Sure.
And find talk about that the first magic
Yeah,
shop.
it was the magic shop in Hicksville, Long Island. It was a magic shop, and which is so cool. I mean, I'm so lucky to have been able to go to that when I was a kid versus, you know, nowadays it's all, well, there's some shops left, brick and mortar shops, but it's a lot of, you know, a lot of people get introduced to magic by learning online. And there's just something about getting to step into the store that can't be beat, and magic shops kind of encompass all of those really cool things that I love. It has like horror elements. There's like rubber masks and costumes and pranks and just weird items. And boy, I just loved all that so much. So I would go there all the time. My mom would drive me, and the guys at the shop behind the counter would show me tricks, and I would just like hang out there for a couple hours and come home with a bag of stuff and play with it.
I love that. What was one of your earliest magic tricks? I mean, everyone starts off with the rings and little cups and balls
Yeah,
and stuff.
sure.
What was your foray into it?
Yeah, I had those for sure. I think the first real, it was the sponge balls. There's like
Oh,
little
right.
red sponge
Little
balls,
fun
and
spring balls,
yeah, you really learn a lot about a lot of the elements of magic playing with that trick. And the same with like the ones you mentioned, cups and balls particularly. There's like lots of moves of learning misdirection and vanishes and appearances that you later apply to everything you do for the rest of your life. So those sponge balls were very important.
I love that. And you're out and proud in your profession and everything. Talk about, when did you first start coming out to yourself, and where do you feel you started first finding your LGBTQ tribe?
Yeah. Uh, I let's see. Growing up it was difficult. In elementary school and junior high, in high school, a couple of the friends that I had in like the music department and the show choir, we were all kind of half coming out to each other, like, I'm bisexual, I think, maybe, right? Yeah, like, but we didn't tell like the rest of the school, like, so we weren't like out in high school or anything, but we were all like messing around and all like hooking up and all sort of into the closet, out of the closet. So I even went to college still with, like, I wasn't out and proud in college. My first years, I was very like, it was very, I used a lot of discretion who I would tell and reveal it to. And I think that even impacts still. I mean, those things, like, you grow up that way, and it even just still impacts. Like you say, you're out and proud in your career, and I am, but also like, there's sort of like, there's always the echoes of that weird little, like, growing up having hidden it. It still has sort of a kind of an impact on just like me and my husband, Peter. We'll even joke about it sometimes. We're like, gosh, it's so funny. Like, you go drop your car off at the mechanic, and Peter told me the other day, he's like, it was so weird. The guy was like, are you picking it up? And he's like, no, my roommate's gonna grab it. He's like, I can't believe I said my roommate. I like didn't say my husband because it was a mechanic. And all of a sudden, like, all those ghosts of like these guys at the workshop, like, oh, same game for those guys. It's like, holy crap, I can't believe that's still like residually like in my psyche. But I mean, at least we laugh about it, but it's still there,
It's
So
crazy.
yeah, and then professionally, I was in a movie in 2006 called Another Gay Movie, which was
Thank
a like
you, award at Outfest. I appreciate that. I
that's
saw that.
right. Oh man, and that still rings as the number one greatest thing I've ever done in this industry. But my memories of doing that, getting to be an actor and being the lead in a movie, and I had never been to LA before, and we all went out to LA. Well, some of us were cast here, but like, boy, that experience still rings as the number one for me. But when I did that movie, the idea was, because I wasn't out per se, and it's funny because I never actually came out in any like formal fashion in my career. It was just sort of like, I guess I just started being less, I don't remember a time where I was like, okay, I'm going to go on whatever news, or there wasn't a magazine where I said,
magazine, right?
no, I didn't do that. It just suddenly, and then so sometimes when I hear it bounce back, it's like, you're out and proud in your career. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I guess I just started just not saying it. So, because when I did that movie, which obviously was playing a gay kid, it was like an American Pie. For those of you who haven't seen it, it was like a spin on like, what would it be like if there was like a gay teen, or a teen sex romp movie, like a Porky's or an American Pie, but like with a gay twist to it. So a very big gay twist. But even then, in the interviews for all of that, which was kind of my first foray into getting like magazine interviews and stuff like that, I wasn't out. And like, me and the other guys were kind of like, some of us were gay, some of us weren't. We were like, all right, let's not say who's who. And that was kind of the way we played that at the time. And I think the mystery really worked, and also like the showbiz was different then too. My agent was suggesting being a little more coy and mysterious. And I mean, he was cool. He was never like, you can't come out or anything like that. But the mystery worked, because someone asked me recently, like, if you can go back and do that movie again, would you be out the entire time? And I was like, God, that's an interesting question. And on one level, I think I think it would be interesting to do that, but I also have to honor that at that time, the way I played it and we all played it actually worked, and the mystery kind of worked, and it was a cool, coy way to almost be saying yes while not. I mean, it's not very forward, I guess. I do think it would be cool to be totally out during that time, but I think the mystery worked at that time.
Well, even today, I mean, like you said, I've had the pleasure of seeing you a couple times in person. Your act is very family friendly for everyone. It's not for the gay audiences, right? It's just a great
Right.
show to put on. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I do too. And I had hope in fact, when I did another gay movie, I was like, uh-oh, because I was making my living doing like communions and school banquets and christenings and family picnics as a magician. I would like drive. I lived in New York, but I would drive out to Long Island and perform. I had like all these customers, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I do this movie, that's might be the end of me performing for like families. And then I was like, I hope the world is advanced enough to kind of be like, Robin Williams is naughty in his stand-up, but then he can do family movies, and same with Eddie Murphy. Like, I see that it is possible, but being with the gay angle, I don't know what this is going to do. So I really kind of dove into that going like, I might really just be completely changing the course of my life. And oddly, it didn't at all. I mean, I'll never forget one time it was like right at the popularity of the movie, and everyone in the gay community, it was all over the place and people knew about it. And I went and performed, here I was like going to film festivals, like in this gay sex romp, and then like coming back home and like going to perform like a 5th grade graduation as a magician. And, one of the principals of the school pulled me backstage and was like, hey, just wanted to let you know, I saw that movie. Gosh, you were so funny in that. And like, there's this like gay principal, and I was like, oh my gosh. And that was a real eye opener. And I was like, it was a beautiful moment, really. I was like, okay, so like those fears, like you reach who you reach. And so it was nice. And even still, but like you said, my show now is even still, and I love that. I love getting to perform like in a Johnny Carson style where you're not kids. I'm not performing for children. It's not a kiddie show, but anyone could watch it. And there's like different comedy happening on different levels. But I don't know, maybe there's a big gay sex romp magic show in the future that won't be for kids. Who knows?
That would be fun too. But yeah, keep it in that special After Dark episode.
Yeah. No, and my husband and I, we have a magic act that we do together that's very like sexy and homoerotic. Yeah, it's this one magic. It's a riff on Houdini's needle swallowing routine, where he would swallow a whole bunch of sewing needles and swallow thread and then pull them out of his mouth. And we created this routine where it's sort of like two guys feeding each other the needles, and we have this like Lady and the Tramp moment with a thread between our mouths that we go closer and closer and closer and kiss, and then pull apart, and the threaded needles are between our mouths. It's really sexy and super cool. So. And obviously we don't do that I'm not doing that in my live family touring show, but the places where we get to do that is always so super special and cool. And that is a little of that after hour. So maybe there's an expansion of that world.
I love that. Well, talking about Hidden Mainstream, I told you off camera that I've been a fan since the Jay Leno days, or from Tonight Show before that. Tonight Show days where you're doing what led up to Carbonaro. Talk about that big break. How did that come about?
It was weird because I went to, so here I was, a kid. I wanted to be a makeup artist, went into magic, loved performing magic, I was like a fireball illusionist as a kid in high school. Like I thought I was David Copperfield, and I would do these school assemblies and cutting people in half and like disappearing. And I'd made a tiger appear at my school once. I mean, crazy. I was like, this is what I want to do. So I went to NYU with the sole purpose of becoming the next greatest like David Copperfield magician. And I took specifically went into musical theater, not because I liked musical theater at all, but because that program at the school kind of broke down like voice and acting and dance and movement and speech. And the acting parts of the studio were very intense. It wasn't just like musical theater acting. It really had what I thought the best overview of the world of theater, that I could use those, tricks and techniques to come up with the greatest magic show. And I really got into acting while I was there. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of funny. And I was like, oh, I'm really good in these funny scenes that we're doing. And I'm like, oh, and I started doing stand up in New York. And then I was like, maybe it's not magic. Maybe I want to be like on a sitcom and be an actor. And so I started like pursuing that in New York. And when I went to LA, eventually after college, I followed my husband. He was my husband at the time, but I probably never would have had the strength or like, I probably wouldn't have dove out to LA and gave it a shot, but I thought he went out for a project. He was in The Lair on Here TV, which is like a gay vampire TV series, which he regards as his favorite thing in the industry. But
just redid it, actually. My friend just redid it.
Oh yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah, that was super cool. We have a poster, and boy, it was a crazy time. But I followed him a year later. He went out to LA. He was like, I'm gonna give it a shot, and he moved out there, and we were like dating at the time. It was like a big deal that he was gonna leave, and we're gonna be apart. And but I followed him a year later, and when I went out to LA, it was with the goal to kind of put magic on the side and really go for the acting. So I had done some guest star stuff, and the stuff you can do in New York, and a little bit of theater, but I was like, I'm going to go to LA where I could really take a shot at acting. And I did really well. I got a lot of guest star stuff. I was booked in a bunch. I got a recurring. And also the Magic Castle is here in Hollywood, the premier magic club, for magicians. And so I was meeting people there and performing there too. So I was like, oh, there's actually more going on in the world of variety and magic here in LA than I thought there would be. And it was nice. It was a beautiful home and got to meet some cool people. And then this opportunity came up to meet with The Tonight Show. They wanted to work on a magic segment. And I really went into the meeting sort of like, just like rolling my eyes, like, this is stupid. Like, I don't even want to do this and whatever. I mean, if I was going to do it, I'd want to do it like this. And I was a little bit forward, I think, in the meeting where I was like, this is what would be cool. And I was pretty matter of fact. And I showed them what would work and I thought it would be cool. And they took to it and they were like, yeah, we want to do that. And I was like, okay, let's do it. That actually would be cool. But there was something about that kind of like whatever attitude that I think probably made me look not very needy, which is always alluring, I think, in this town. And I essentially brought to them what became that first segment on The Tonight Show, which they called Magic Clerk, which was me performing behind a counter at a convenience store, doing magic that I tried to make seem like was moments of real life. Like they let me kind of come up with the scenarios, like what would it be like? And I think the prime thing that I came up with was what if somebody pays me with a $5 bill or $10, $20 bill, and I show them it's counterfeit by taking a napkin and wiping away the ink of the bill they just handed me and showing that underneath that bill is actually a $100 bill, and try to convince them that counterfeiters are in town trying to disguise hundreds as like lower denominations in circulation so that they could retrieve them later, which is ridiculous. And like, but what was interesting is that when someone sees the money that you handed them and you wipe away the ink and it's really 100 and I hand it back to them and go, here, I can't accept that. Now they're holding 100. They're kind of like, okay, great, thanks. And she walked out of the store. So, but that effect really was the premise of what worked so well, which was a visual, something that can't be denied because I'm seeing it with my own eyes. It's something that sort of hooks a little into something we know about in the world, which is like counterfeit money and those tests they do on bills where they wipe the pen or whatever. So I've seen that happen. So that plus, the ink is coming off and there's really 100 underneath, and I'm seeing that with my own eyes, plus this bizarre story that tries to make an absurd sense. And if you could link all those three things together and get the person to buy into it, that was essentially what became the Carbonaro effect. So I immediately, while I was doing that segment, was like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of this idea I had in college, which was to use like special effects and magic together to like make people believe in things in the real world. And I'm talking like big things like, can we get them to believe that like Jesus is floating across a lake, and like can get them to believe in Bigfoot and, using magic techniques or aliens landing. So I had like big ideas for it. So when it came to like turning it into a TV show, it was kind of like finding ways to do the little things and also like, on the kind of budget that we had to pull it off, like orchestrate these larger, crazy act fours, we called them. They were always the end of the show. Although the first season didn't really start with the end. The end of this first season's bits weren't really big, but they got bigger as we went along, and the stories got more complicated and exciting, and that's how that happened.
Well, you were the OG, my friend. I mean, I follow Justin Wilson now and everyone else, but you were the OG that really pulled that off, and I love that. Talk about though all of a sudden, so now you're executive producing and starring this Carbonaro effect. Were you expect? I mean, a television show, now all of a sudden you're doing this every week and having to come up with these new tricks, everything.
Yeah.
Was that exciting? Was that scary as hell? I mean, how did that
Oh, it was impossible. It was absolutely impossible. And again, I'm bizarre. Like I was teetering right on the edge when Carbonaro Effect got greenlit to be a pilot, which it wasn't called Carbonaro Effect at the time. It was just called like True TV's Hidden Camera Magic Show. We didn't know what we were going to call it. We went to shoot the pilot in Atlanta. We shot for whatever it was, 2 weeks. And while we were coming home, I kind of was like, all right, well, we'll put this thing together. And if it's going to get picked up to a series, I'll do that. And if it doesn't get picked up a series, I think I'm going to take the money from the pilot and put it toward special effects school and just start going to special effects school here in LA and just forget it. Like forget the performing part of things and just give that a shot. So I was literally on the edge of doing that. So like the show got picked up and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm doing this. But to your question, I thought if I did, if I tried my best and pulled together all the people that I knew could help out, I bet we could put together like 10 really good episodes of Hidden Camera Magic. So
what was the pickup order? How many episodes were you written?
That was, they kind of, the way they explain to you versus what actually happens when it becomes successful is very different. I couldn't believe it. The front order at the time, and the business has completely changed now. Nobody gets this, but, and I probably would have rather not had it because it's too grueling. I mean, the pickup order was for 13 episodes. And so we shot, I know, right out the gate, we had to do 13. So we shoot 13, and when that's over, and I'm like, okay, we'll take a minute. Immediately they pick up the back order. And I'm like, wait, what's a back order? They're like, it's the rest of season 1. I'm like, wait, hold on. So we just shot 13 of these things and that's not season 1? It's like, no, 13 more for the back order. 26 episodes will be your season 1. And you're like, what? And of course your contract's like, you don't get paid more until it goes into the next season. And you're like, oh my God. So, but also just, it really was. And look, if I was doing Ridiculousness or some other show where it's like a take show, whatever, I'm like walking out and hosting or have a little input, I'd be like, bring them on, let's shoot all these things. I think the show Ridiculousness, they shoot like an entire season in like 2 weeks in a warehouse in LA, and that's the end of that. But this, to make the show and have it be as good as it was, I had 100% involvement in every aspect of it. Because I had to. I mean, otherwise it was just not going to work. Like I had to be in every writing room and come up with the bits because they had to make sense to me that I could orchestrate them. I'm the only guy on screen. Like we even pitched early on, maybe it's a Mythbusters situation where I could have one of my cohorts with me and we jam the idea backstage and you learn about the process and then we bring the person in and do it. And it was like, no. We just want you doing the things. So that formula for me to like have to do that, plus be involved in all of the writing, and then obviously shooting every single day, it's all on me the whole time. And then editing, I was in the editing room for every single frame of every single episode because I have to watch and make sure it's being, because it's a whole different world. Like you fool someone in the room, but then to translate that for TV so that the home viewer's fooled, it's a whole different language. So you're doing 2 shows at one time. So then as soon as that was done, normally an actor or somebody involved in a show once you're done shooting, it goes to post, and then you have some time off while the show is made, and then it airs. But like I was there all, and then as soon as that show is now on the air, we're writing the next season. So it was really just like 6 years of nonstop, which is it just wasn't sustainable at all mentally. I mean, it was really hard, and it was just really hard. I mean, I was toward the end, I was like, two things happened where for one, I was like, I was feeling we had done so well and I was so proud of the show, but I was like, it was starting to feel like it was time to come to an end anyway. 125 episodes. We worked every single possible scenario and effect. I did way beyond what I ever wanted to do with the show. And it was like, okay, I think we got to find an ending before this gets ugly or it gets crappy or we start repeating ourselves too much. And so I was like, I kind of wanted to bring it to an end there. And also, it just kind of also wasn't a sustainable operation. So they wanted to keep going. It was like, that was a big deal. I mean, I had a like network meeting with the president and go in and just really explain to them. I was like, I need to bring this to an end now. And they were even like, can you do one more season? And I was like, no. And then they blah, blah. And then they came back and they were like, okay, if you do one more half season of 8 episodes and then we do some specials tied to it, we actually can make a package for syndication, but it has to be that number. So it was like, okay, that's worthwhile. So we did that. And I'm glad they pushed me to do that because our last season of 8 episodes was definitely the best stuff we ever did. And maybe that's because we knew it was coming to an end or whatever, but like, man, boy, that was a mouthful.
No, that was good though, and I love hearing that. Like you said, it's a totally different animal, and now things are 6 to 8 episodes for
Totally
table. I've become really good friends with Jen Ushkowitz and Kevin McHale from Glee, and that whole Glee experience was the same thing. All of a sudden, you're doing 22 episodes, and you're touring in between, and you're trying to. There's no life, right? So for getting through 5 seasons of that and all those episodes, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great story. Thank you. Talk about touring now. I mean, you got Lies on Stage. I think you're going out this weekend, heading towards my neck of the woods here in the Pennsylvania area.
Yeah.
Talk about taking these shows live. What is fun for you still? What's the challenge for you still? And how do you like that?
Yeah. That's the real gift and it's so awesome to have a TV show and it, pulling off the things I did on TV. I'm so proud of what we accomplished. And I mean, look, it's great getting, I went to the movie, Peter and I went to the movies the other night and, the kid taking tickets just like walked over to me and was like, hey, man, you were my childhood. And I was like, oh my God. So that was like, I don't know, that's really cool. So like that's huge. And I'm so grateful for that and for what we put out in the world for magic. I was really so nervous that magicians weren't going to like what I was doing or that it wasn't honoring magic right. And so to have this legacy of work that's so cool that still, I mean, people are banking it on TikTok and it's all over the place. They cut up the show and they put it everywhere. And most of them don't even say what it's from, unfortunately. So people are like, oh, there's that thing, but they don't even know who it is or what show it's from or whatever. But it still has traction and that's super cool. But the part that really became the real prize was getting to go out on the road. Like once I was able to jump up on stage to do a show for the fans, and this was weird because I had so much material because I'd been performing at the Castle. I've been performing my entire life since I was 13 years old, coming up with these routines that I've honed and were really funny and cool. And then it was like, but it's more of like me as the host magician characters that are the fans of the Carbonaro effect going to go to a theater and take that ride with me? I was like, I didn't know. So that kind of became the way, it was like, how do I design some of the routines that I did for stage that also honored that character? And I found some cool things that even back to that trick with the ink off the bill, it was like I start the show off kind of with a prank. I borrow $1 from somebody and I proved that it wasn't a real dollar with and turned their bill into 100. And there's this extra wink because they know I'm a magician. And that was sort of the way the whole live tour started, was like just calling it out at the beginning. Like, you guys are used to seeing me on TV where the people don't know I'm a magician. And obviously, you know that I am a magician. But that's not going to stop you from experiencing the effect. And that's how I would start. And boy, they just came right on board. And it was so exciting to be able to perform. And I just come alive on stage. I love being in a real room with real people, really watching, knowing that I'm doing magic and taking that ride with people. It's such a fun experience, and having them have joy and excitement and seeing their faces out there and connecting families and couples. And it's just that all ages audience I love so much. And I love it. I always love it. I still love it. It's just such a beautiful and wonderful thing to get to do. I'm so grateful. The challenging part about it is that it used to be kind of like, I guess for maybe, I guess if you're like Gaga or, Taylor Swift or whatever, it's different. But like now for where I exist, it's like you don't quite say like, all right, I wrote this tour and now here are all the tour dates for it. Come to one of them, and then that's the end of that tour. Now it's kind of like you're like, okay, I've got 12 tour dates, but then we're going to add a couple of more along the way, and then we're going to add even more, and then in order to, and it's really hard to write an entire tour show and then workshop it at the Castle or like the Black Rabbit Rose Club. That's another place here in LA where I can kind of jump up on stage and workshop a routine in between two other things that work to really get a tour going, to make sure it's going to play. And building that whole tour together, which is like an hour and a half of material, it's hard. So like you make that tour and you want to be able to share it with everybody. So two things happen is that the tour just ends up going on for years. Like I've been doing Lies on Stage now. I actually poked the first version of Lies on Stage in 2019, right before the world shut down. So that kind of doesn't count. But then the world shut down. But then I was back out on the road in 22, I think, when things were starting to happen again. So there it was, like, so 22, and now it's 24, and I'm still doing Lies on Stage because I haven't hit all the places I could hit with it. So it's a little strange because you're like, it looks like you're doing the same thing for a long time, but you're like, no, it's actually still that same tour that I haven't gotten everywhere. And plus, because of the oversaturation of stuff, man, we try the best we can to get the word out there for every show, obviously. But then like I'll play Orlando and then I'll get like 3 emails the next week, like, how come you never come to Orlando? Are you ever going to be here? And you're like, oh my God, I just played there. So then like we go back to Orlando and do the show again. So it's that part gets frustrating and a little tangling for me. And I really do. It's not great, but I don't like social media, and I didn't get into this business for any of that world. I don't like making content. And it is the one thing that often keeps me either like, I have serious conversations about like, I think I might need to like get out of this business. Like I see the way it's going and I'm like, I don't know if that's for me. So that's my struggle with that. And in order to have a tour, you have to do all those pieces of it. So that's the part that really kind of eats away at me. And I start having like an existential crisis where I'm like, this is not the artist. Like, I know it's part of it, but like, I don't know if I want to live in this world of how things move through the social systems these days.
That's one of the many questions I had, that how it's kind of changed and evolved everything, having to do these extra pieces and have that YouTube content or have the TikTok or have the things like that. And it changes the entire atmosphere of it, I would think. So yeah, that's the question I was going to ask. So you follow the with it, So
I mean, I just have no desire to be making like bits for social. Like I like performing my show, and like I'm really tricky though, because I don't even like going on the news and doing like a trick on the news, or like I've done like Kelly Clarkson, and she was great. That was the best one. That was actually great. But I've been on like the Today Show and that is kind of my worst nightmare. Another thing that makes me like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, because it's just sort of an impossible scenario to have an actual moment of magic, like going on like the Today Show to do a trick in front of like Hoda and whoever, and like that is like, I'd rather just freeze in a lake. I mean, it's just awful. I mean, it's because you're like, okay, I'm gonna have you pick a card. Okay, so he's having me take a card now. Okay, so I'm taking a card. All right, and I got it in my hand. And you're like, what am I talking to? What is this thing that's talking to like
right?
I actually was like coming up with, I wanted to do a bit where I was like, I want to do a trick that for some reason I have to like put tape over their mouth, Like, I'm going to put a piece of tape over my mouth, and I'm going to put a piece of tape over your mouth. You leave yours for a second. I'm going to take mine off and like have that tie into the trick, but it's literally just so they can't talk while I'm doing the trick. Man, no, I not a fan of that at all. And it's, I get the conundrum. It's like, wait, he's a guy, he's a magician, he's doing a tour, or he had a TV show, and now he's coming on the show, so we'd want him to do a trick. And you're like, I guess, yeah, kinda. I mean, you don't always have, like, every time a singer comes on for an interview, they don't sing a song, and an actor doesn't come on and like act out a scene. But magic's a little, I get it. Magic, like, let's show us a little something. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna hang myself.
There you go. Oh,
So you
my
want to see a
goodness.
trick? No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. Really. Wait a second. Let me pull something out of the back pocket here. No,
Mhm.
I love it. Like I said, when I've seen you a couple times now, and you come alive on stage, and what I love is your flow. I mean, I've been a fan forever. Like I said, the TV show, you're kind of single one-offs, right? You're doing your creating
Yeah.
together, but your show has such a narrative through it. And I'm trying to remember the last one fast. There was something with a box or a picture of some kind. I don't remember what it was on stage. I don't want to do it justice and screw it up, but
Oh, yeah.
just the way you narrate through it and come back to it after other tricks, everything in between. You're just a master at it, my friend. It's great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really do love doing that, and I love the premise of being a magician in a theater in front of people. It's a really cool art form, kind of like a stand-up comic, where there is a broken fourth wall. We're talking to them directly, and we have whatever experiment that we're doing. But that's almost just the real trick is that there is a trick. Like the trick becomes almost the gimmick to getting to be together and have a good time. I love going out into the crowd and playing with people in their seats and bringing them up on stage and having that improvisational energy. Every night's different. Like, even if you've seen the show before, it's going to be different when you see it this time, because who knows what this person's going to be like on stage. And I love that. That keeps it super fresh for me. And yeah, I love doing that.
You do it so well. Now, talk about the freedom of it. I mean, you talked about your husband, Peter. I told you out there, I'm a huge fan. He was in Exteriors last year with a couple of great friends of mine. How do you keep this? Does it make it easier in the business now? He works in the business. You work in doing this touring. Does it give you guys some time for quality? I mean, you're 10 years in now. Maybe you don't want quality time. Give yourself a little break. Talk about, is it able to work better than having to be on the show for 10 months putting the show together?
Yeah. We have a very healthy kind of, like, we do a lot of things together. We have friends that we hang out with together, and we also have tons where we don't, like, ask of each other to go every single time. Like, he has his friends that he'll go hang out with, and I have my friends that I go hang out with. Or there's no, if he's like, I'm gonna go see this movie, do you want to? And I'm like, no. And he'll be like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll take Vince or whatever. Like, it's very healthy. So that part's really cool. Yeah, when I was doing the show, he was just home. Here we are in LA, and we living in first an apartment, and then we got a house, and I'm like in Atlanta or in Chicago for like months at a time. So I wasn't home at all. So that was very tricky. But now here he comes on the road with me. So he's at every show. So that's really cool. So we have this little toy poodle that comes on the road with us as well. So we go out, and it's not like we're out on the road for like stretches of weeks in a bus or anything like that. We're going to go out to Pennsylvania this weekend, and then to Poughkeepsie, New York. We do 2 shows, and then we come home, and then we're home for a little bit, and then we'll go out again next weekend, and then maybe the next week will be off, and we're home the whole time. So we come back and forth. We usually do just like 2 shows or 3 shows a weekend, and then and able to come back. So that kind of makes it cool. It's grueling sometimes too. Sometimes if you have like 2-3 show weekends, like, do we come home for 2 days? And the answer is like, yeah, we do. We go home just to be home for 2 days, even if we have to jump back on a plane. But it's good. So that part keeps it cool. And he loves getting to be in the show, and he comes out on stage, and he's, I guess you would say, my lovely assistant at some parts in the show. And yeah, we have a nice vibe with that.
That's a great work-life balance. I love that. We're going to start wrapping up, because I promised I'd keep you about a half hour here. Talk to me about, I'm going for my very first time. I'm taking the show on the road. I'm doing a Big Gay Road Trip 3. I'm leaving from Northeast Ohio here, driving cross country, and do a month's worth of live shows in Palm Springs and doing different events. And one of my events, I'm doing brunch at the Magic Castle for my very first time.
Oh, wow.
At the Magic Castle on a Saturday brunch.
Wow, that is probably one of the more tricky questions because when you're going to have a great time, it's really, really awesome. The brunches are open to all ages. So, yeah, the entertainers will be a little different. It'll depend when you're going, who's playing. So it's hard for me to recommend who. Sometimes there's this great magician, Mike Pashada. If you can see Mike Pashada, he's a kind of a regular there. He's my favorite experience at the castle. I know he plays nightly, and he's downstairs in the Hat and Hair bar nightly. Probably the greatest magician that plays the castle right now. So if he's playing, I would go see that. But your best thing is, go to all of the shows that they have the entire time. There's going to be multiple performers there. And just make sure you walk around the entire perimeter of the place and see like every aspect of it. That's sort of most of the fun.
I am so looking forward to it. I mean, I've driven by it a million times when I lived in LA, and I've known about it. But I actually, Hervé, the general manager, has become a friend of mine, so he's invited me to meet a bunch of friends there. And so I'm going to go for brunch Saturday. I'm going to try to sneak in one night while I'm in town, so I can see the magic at night.
Yeah, if you can get in at night, I would do that too.
Nice. I love it. Well, Michael Carbonaro, has been an absolute pleasure to get to know you a little bit more, to get to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming Left to Straight Show.
Thank you for having me, Scott. It was great.
Oh, my pleasure. Remind everyone your website so they can find all these upcoming tour dates.
Yes.
And where they can follow along.
Sure. It's at michaelcarbonaro.com. That's Michael, CARBONARO.com. It's got the whole list of tour dates. And I would love to see you out on the road.
Fantastic. We will do it. All right. Stay in the line for me. Guys, we'll have 5 questions with Michael next week. Be sure to look for that. We appreciate you tuning in every Wednesday and Thursday for Left to Straight Show interviews. We will see you next time. Have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Left of Straight Show. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast distributor, and please give us a 5-star rating so more listeners can find us. You can follow us on social media, and be sure to check out our website for contests and other news and information. See you next week.